Michael Nesler, what an absolute honor to bring you on Paragliding Atlas, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, fine. And you?
Absolutely magical. I mean, we finally are speaking after weeks of exchanging emails. And it's a beautiful day outside. So, yes, summer is coming along well and promising, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I hope.
All right, Michael, let's dive right into this because the reason why I stumbled upon your website is that you have a very sensational new product, a two-liner in an E&B category, where you have managed to certify it, and the DHV is supporting this new invention. But before we go into that, I was just thinking as I was preparing this episode, I was like, why did paragliders have three-line concept? Like, what is the history behind three-line concept?
Yeah, it's a long time ago when we began to paragliding. For me, it was about 40 years ago. The
Yeah.
first paraglider, there was two lines on bottom, and they divided on top on A and B, what go to one main line, and C and D goes to the next main line. And the origin was this. And after, I guess, 20 years ago, somebody tried to make only 4-line attachment points on the wings, the gliders. Then we go to 3-line attachment points, but always 3 or 4 main lines, A, B, C, D. And then step by step, the target was to reduce the line resistance and the number of lines. But especially the line resistance is not the problem that the diameter or how can I explain? The resistance to the wind of all lines, but the problem is that the lines on the back, where is not much load, they are blown out of the wind from the speed what you have, and then they pull down the canopy there because there is not much load. So the target was to have a lot of lines or less lines, but every line what goes down to the pilot have to be loaded well. In the beginning, when we have the 4-liners about 30 years ago, it means A, B, C, D lines on bottom. The D lines always was not under load.
This is A, B, C, D, and then a break line. So 5, if you have to look at it.
Of course. Yeah, the brake line is always extra. And the main problem at this time was that the last line section, the D line, behind in flag was not loaded. There was about 1-2 kilo per line, and this is not very much. And with the speed you got, the lines was blowing out, and they pulled me down the trailing edge or close to the trailing edge. So the first step was to unify, to collect the C and D lines on top and bring it down only with one main line. This was the 3-liner. And of course, the next step would be 2-line down, because so the A and B section on bottom is loaded more, and to reduce the blown out effect from the wind a lot. But if you look today, every canopy you will find a 2-liner have 4 attachment points on the canopy. So this is not a real 2-liner, has been made about 15 years ago for testing. With only A and B attachment point on the canopy. This was working, but it was not flying very well.
Interesting. Okay, I'm very curious about this line attachment points and the geometry that it makes. But just before we dive into that, let's speak a little bit about transition from ram air canopies into the more elliptical or ellipsoid shaped, which we have now. Because I think we started with skydiving looking canopies where people were just, taking the risers in the air and jumping off the hill. So what line concept was that, and what were the early inventions of paragliding looking like, if I may ask?
Yeah, when I started paragliding, I used a skydiving canopy where we put our reinforcements on the nose to keep it open in takeoff. And the line concept at this time was already 2 lines on the main lines, and on the top we had 4 attachment points, A, B, C, D, connected to A and B main line. And the funny thing is, it's nearly the same system we have today again. But between this and today, there was some transitions with different line concept, was also works very well. But as I told before, the main problem was always that we have to load the lines what coming down to the pilot.
So you're basically saying that the load distribution has improved over a period of time, due to which the pressure has improved in the canopy, and that is what actually enhances the performance. Is that the key here?
Yes, this is one of the keys. The second key is, of course, as less I have the chord of the profile, the deepness from front to back, at less I can put line attachment points. So when I have 3.50 meters, like the old wings had in the center, I need to support the profile with 4 attachment points. If I have only 2.50 m, it's easier to support it with 3 attachment points, or like on a two-liner with double A and double B attachment points on top. Because
is this the aspect ratio that you're speaking about?
Yes, of course. Okay. The aspect ratio and also the surface, what you need to fly well.
I mean, what I'm wondering is it about reducing like the cross-section area of the whole setup? Or is it about just reducing the drag? Or like, is it about finding a sweet spot between both of them?
No, it's more complex. Just to give you an idea, when we begin to fly, the canopy used a profile, a airfoil, where the thickness was between 9 and 12% of the cord. So if you have a 1 meter cord, you got 10 centimeter. Yes. No.
It's like the amount of air, like distance between top surface and bottom surface. Yeah.
The wings from today have 18%. It means we are using in relation much thicker airfoils today than 40 years ago. But this kind of airfoils is better for paragliding because we are flying at low speed compared to aviation. Mm-hmm. And these thick airfoils give me the possibility to use less line attachment points because I have more volume and then it's more stable.
This is so interesting.
The combination between aspect ratio, lower core, and thicker profiles give me more possibilities to use less attachment points on the canopy.
Okay, because the more the air inside it is, the more pressurized it is. And the more pressurized it is like...
Yeah. Let's say the main problem, even today, is to support the area on the airfoils on the wing between the second A attachment point on the two-liner and the next on the B section, because the distance there is very long.
So what usually happens in like, what is the trade-off that a designer is working with when there's an increased area of distance between 2 attachment points? Like, is it that in that localized area there's low pressure, or is the canopy more likely to fold in those areas because it's not tight enough? Like, what are we looking at with increasing distance?
Yeah, there are many problems if the distance is too big. For example, if you begin with easy wing overs, you will see that the canopy is squeezed there. So you lose the shape of the airfoil. It means you lose also lift. The same game you have when the wing is going older at full speed. This is one of the big problems what the C2 liners have at the moment. After a lot of flights, when the rods in the front are not in the original shape, but they are still bended, and the porosity going higher, then the pressure inside is not enough to keep your airfoil in the shape what you need between in this area where you have a big distance. So what happens if you accelerate can be that they don't keep the shape and you lose a lot of performance or safety. That's also the reason for why the two liners, for example, have the double A points very far behind. So you have the less distance between these two sections.
Where does the, like, what is it called? I'm forgetting the name, where we have the stabilo lines attached. Like, what is the profile? Is it a profile of the canopy or shape of the canopy? Is like the arc
of the canopy? Yeah, the arc.
Yeah. So where does arc come into play, and how important is arc with all of this? Because I think when you as a designer sit on a table, there are like so many variables to consider, before you start like fine tuning the perfect balance points. So how does an arc of a glider play its shape in performance and safety when it comes to reducing drag and cross section and everything?
Yeah. It's also not so easy to explain because there are a lot of things connected, but I will try. Let's say if you make a half circle of arc, you get very good handling. You get very easy collapses and front stalls, of course, but you lose performance in gliding and thermaling. This is the main problem. And if you give speed, if you accelerate the glider, you lose a lot of performance. If you make it completely flat, of course, the pressure and the load distribution will not work well. So if you get a collapse, you cannot reopen. So the canopies of today are a mix between half circle and flat. Means normally elliptic and a half of ellipse. And here is depending the kind of the canopy and also what kind of airfoil you are using and a lot of other parameters. But one of the main things what the arc is defining is the behavior in collapsing. The other thing is with the arc, you can handle when your canopy is going in stable spiral or not.
Yeah,
so for example,
I've heard about that.
as closer you go to a half circle, at easier and faster your glider will go, for example, in a stable spiral. And thus more is difficult to bring him out.
Fair enough. Just, to get started on your amazing project. To basically E&B class, when we as consumers look at classifications, it seems like, people in your time when they were bringing out with these safety, I would say work group 6 or other, parameters around it, they wanted to make paragliding safer. So they came out with a lot of European norms which laid the guidelines. E&B class in general, past few years, I would say, let's say maybe 5. This is before the ENC two-liners came into the picture. E&B class started expanding itself in low B, mid B, high B because of the possibilities with respect to certification. And it is generally considered as a safe class where people can step over straight after school. Some do that. Some go to high Bs to test out their endurance. But it is like the stepping stone which prepares you for the hotter wings that our industry or the sport has to offer. So somebody of your stature coming out in the market and saying that, hey, I am going to bring out a two-liner concept and challenge the status quo, which everybody else is afraid to because everybody has just done three-liners. So what was the mindset behind having a two-liner in E&B class? How did you start thinking about it?
Okay. First, I have to say that the problem of the C two-liners is that they doesn't use a wing already existing for a three-liner and bring it to two-liner concept, but they construct the wings for the maximum possible performance in this class with the two-liner concept. And this is difficult to compare because everybody are speaking about two-liner and connected to the mindset that we have more performance and less safety. But this is simply said bullshit. If you use the same wing with a two-liner and a three-liner concept, you will find out very fast that it's more stable and easier in the maneuvers with the two-liner if you are using the same canopy. Of course, if I begin to say I have to win the performance competition on the C class and I put somebody did with 7.5 aspect ratio, 7.2 in the C class, of course, these wings are difficult to fly and not so safe. But this is not connected to the two-line concept, but it's the whole together. So our concept or my concept was, I tried about 2 years ago because everybody say, oh, we have to need to make a two-liner. I say, okay, I will try it to an existing wing. I just modify the line concept. I let all the rest the same like it is. So we convert the LILO, my personal LILO, about 2 years ago in a two-liner. And I find out a lot of interesting things. The first, it was more stable and more performing.
Obviously.
What's a nice thing. The next thing, I miss every system of fast descending. I cannot more make big ears. I cannot make a front stall. I cannot make a side collapse. I can spiral down, of course. I cannot make a B-style. Let's say I can make it, but it's not fun.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about, after 1 year, what I flew it, that all these things, that is flying more stable, the behavior, it's easier, the handling also was better. How can I bring it in the B class? Because this is a B glider, I like it, because I fly the whole year in the Dolomites and mostly all conditions, and I don't need a wing where I have fear to take off. And I need also the possibility to make big ears or asymmetric collapse for going down fastly. And so I come to the solution. Why don't let the normal lines, A-lines, what I had on the old LILO, in the same position on this wing, but without load. So if I need it for takeoff...
One more time. I did not understand that.
Right. Do you know the normal LILO have A, B, C, D points on top?
Correct.
The two-line LILO have a double A and double B on top. And the double A is beginning very far behind because I need to support the area there. So the old points on the A, on the 10% of the cord, that was still there with the loop, but I removed it for using it as two-liner. And the idea was I reconnect these lines, but without load on the riser. So I can use the lines for making maneuvers.
All right. Okay. So collapse lines, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It's they say it's like a folding line, but this is not a folding line because you cannot remove it. You need it for takeoff.
Okay.
And this is one of the trick of this glider. I shifted the double A points, the real A, more far behind than on the C liner on the mat. So the whole part is more supported, and you get even the nose automatism, what I try to explain you now, are more effective. And before we go ahead, I have to explain you a little bit why a C-liner it's more safe. Two-liner is more safe than a three-liner. And this is a very simple, if I can explain it well. You know, you have the whole area from the nose to the first attachment point under load.
Correct.
This area is supported by the rods, by the pressure of the air, and by the, let's say, all the things what you have inside, diagonal ribs a little bit and all this stuff.
Correct, yeah.
In normal flight, when you put 1G, it means your load to this wing, what happens? The nose is going a little bit bended up, but not much, okay? So if you have less than 1G, for example, if you have a big turbulence and you jump out of a thermal, you lose load on the A-lines. What happens? The part for the loop to the nose, what is bended a little bit up normally, comes back down to the normal position. So what happens? The wing accelerates a little bit by themselves. If you put more load, this part is bended up more, change the profile shape and slow it down. Okay. So for example, if you make a stall and you release it, you have a lot of load because you are accelerating. Means you have 2G normally in exit, and the nose is bended up and slower the glider down. Then when you come back to your normal load, it's in the original position.
So you're saying the nose is pitching?
It's pitching in all directions, but depending of the load. So as long as the distance between the nose and the first loaded attachment point, that's more effective is this automatism.
So basically, this is the behavior of the structure. That's how it is supposed to. That is how it is designed. It's an aerofoil kind of a thing, behaving in a certain way when you anchor it at some point.
Exactly. And this is, I will say, the most important key of the two-liner concept, that you have the part to the first attachment point, what is making a very well job in turbulences, in maneuvers, and so on. And this is why a C-liner is more stable, because as more I move the A-lines to front, as more dynamic will be the glider, because they cannot compensate the loads differences with the bending of the profile. Did you understand this? It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I'm trying to figure out if we can find a real life example so that the audiences who are listening to us can picture that in their mind. Is there a way to?
It's easy. If you fly into a strong thermal, strike in, okay, what's happened? You are pulled up, and in this moment,
the whole system pitches
upward. Then when you go in, it loses a little bit load because you are not more lifted, and they accelerate. And this automatism, this effect, help you to fly safe, because when it's pitched up, the profile is very, very steady. If you lose weight for a moment, it means that you are not loaded well, your glider. You need to accelerate, and then it's pitched down and accelerate the glider automatically. This is a very funny concept because it works really well.
No, I do understand that the angle of attack reduces and it accelerates by itself and it goes out of the thermal.
It's not angle of attack, Carsten. It's only the part, let's say, you see, this is the nose. Okay.
Oh, the one from the first attachment point to the nose. That is the only one which is moving. Okay.
That's it. It's only moving the part in front. It means you deform the airfoil.
Wow. Okay. Then why does this make two-liner safer than the three-liner? What is the concept, if you could explain?
Easy, because it's a side effect, because that you can use only two lines, two main lines. You need to shift the front lines, the AA, as fast you can, as far you can behind. Okay?
Right, yeah.
Because otherwise the distance between the first and second group is too much. So, and this shifting the AA points far behind give you a longer section in front. What is kind of badly, what is kind of pitching. You understand?
So you're saying that because the system can absorb more energy comparatively to a three-liner, that is why it's more safer. All right. I'll be deviating again, but let's say absorbing energy means wasting it, right? Because energy should be converted into speed. So we are focusing on making as rigid profiles as possible, gliders which retain their shape as much as they can, with respect to billowing or some sort of wrinkling and stuff like that. So why does making a front portion more flexible make performance better?
Yeah, this is based on a very old theory of airfoil in paragliding, but is not correct. I guess you remember when you made your class, when you learn paragliding, they show you the graphics where your airfoil are making lift, right?
You mean what is that? I'm forgetting the name of that one. I know what you're speaking about. Yeah.
Polar diagram.
Is it the Bernoulli's thing or something like that?
Yeah, all this stuff together. But the thing is, on a paraglider, this is working a lot different than a normal airplane. The airfoil is not only making lift upward, but also is pulling you to the front.
Yeah, because of the gravity component. Yeah.
Not only the gravity component, but the pressure area on the nose, on the paragliding profile, begins on the nose. So when you have the profile here, it's pulling you forward.
Wow.
And that's why we cannot use, for example, laminar airfoils on a paraglider, because on the laminar airfoil, this effect you don't have. We need profiles with the maximum height very close to the leading edge.
Wow.
And this means the whole game, it's playing in the first 25%. If you make this area stable and working well, you have a lot of performance.
So you're saying the pressure point in two-liners, because of the position of attachment points, is the key, which makes them better, safer, and, more fun to be than three-liners.
The thing is, for example, I want to make a competition wing more safe and more stable, I can, in theory, move the first points far behind, much more behind. The problem is then you cannot take off anymore.
Oh, okay.
And that's why we have a limit to shift it behind. But this limit, for example, on the LILO X, I don't have, because I have for takeoff and maneuvers the extra lines that are in the normal old position of the original LILO.
That was so cool, man. What an invention.
It was logical.
Creativity, basically.
Yeah, just trying out. And I flew in 2 years now, and I'm really happy with this, because I flew in very, very bad conditions and I never had problems. The only problem what I have at the moment, it's when I go over to fly with my classes, and I normally fly us first to check the conditions. I have a little bit difficult problems to define how turbulent it is, because for me everything looks less turbulent as it's for other pilots. But that's the only thing.
Okay, so this attachment point theory that you said is very interesting to me, because let's say first 25% is the place where most of the aerodynamics come into play, and the whole story is happening. So basically anything behind that part, like let's say the second half of the glider, is just like a fairing designed to let the airflow detach smoothly, just like we have pod harnesses.
Yes, and for the view of aerodynamics, it's true. It's just to avoid vortexes, turbulences after the pressure area. But for paragliding, you needed also to have the surface and to have the brakes working and all these things.
No, I'm just curious from the point of pure hike and fly, not competing, because competing you need glide and everything else. But if a person just wants to go up a mountain and fly down, like the length of the cord can be reduced considerably because the lift is anyways being generated at top.
You can. Maybe you remember years ago, Markus Grünhammer from Wings of Change made a wing with 13 of aspect ratio.
Death blade. God damn it.
And the trick there was very simple. The profile was very thick, and it's coming down very fast, and it works. Let's say it's not very safe, but the performance, it's okay.
God damn, man. Have you tried that wing?
Yeah, of course. I made the first, I designed it also.
Are you kidding me? That's so cool, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. Deviating from the topic a bit, but what was your motivation to do that? Was it like, let's just go out and build something completely wacky and surprise the world and ourselves with it?
Yeah, Markus is a very good friend of mine, and this time we begin. So I guess we was the first paragliding world that tried out aspect ratio with more than 7.5. And it was the first prototype we made together, and we call it Psycho. Because
what do you call it?
Psycho.
Psycho, yeah.
Okay. Because it was very crazy to fly, and of course we were scared about it in the beginning, but then step by step we see that it works well. And then we made one with aspect ratio 9, that works also. And from then Markus tried step by step to improve it till 13 of aspect ratio, and it flew. But I have to say that over 11 the performance is decreasing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it makes no sense to make extremely high aspect ratio on paragliders.
That's interesting because I was thinking we were going towards thinner and thinner wings simply because of. But yeah, as you said, it's not just.
Yeah, this was just for fun because a wing like this, you never can go to homologation. They will say, forget it, I will fly it.
Imagine the homologation guys trying to launch it and spending a lifetime.
Yeah.
What's up with those wings now? Do you guys still take them out? Do you guys still fly them, or where are those wings at the moment?
I don't know. We don't fly. I don't fly it anymore since long time. Marcus sometimes in the winter time he tried to make a flight, avoiding thermals and turbulences, but yeah.
Have you had any collapses on those wings, like bad ones where you just deployed?
No thanks.
So Deathblade has not made anybody deploy a reserve until now since its production.
No, of course not.
That's a very responsible way of flying, Michael. I must tell you that.
Yeah, we like the life.
The reason why I remember it so well is because when I was taking my new beginners course, we were, looking for YouTube videos to get inspired and everything. And then suddenly Deathblade comes along and our instructor is so mad at us. Stop looking at these stupid people. They have been flying for years. You are just starting in the game. So
no, it's just to experiment what is possible and what not.
No, 100%. I think it was very brave to invest.
There was even more crazy wing about, I guess, 25 years ago. I made a wing with an inflatable tube inside with aspect ratio 14. And this, it's flight on the stool training hill, but we never made a flight with high altitude because it was too dangerous.
Okay, this is the tube concept. Comes to my mind so many times because let's say any of these ones, the kite foiling or what's it called? Water kiting? I'm forgetting the name, man.
Kite surfing.
Yeah, kite foiling. Kite surfing. It's just like vocabulary because I live in Norway and I'm trying to learn Norwegian and my English vocabulary is just like destroying itself. But anyways, thank you for the help. That sport is very interesting to me because they have inflated leading edges, which are almost not collapsible, but still a bit flexible. So they do absorb energies, but they retain their shape much quicker or much better than any flexible, non-pressurized profile where it is blocked. So what happens when we introduce that concept in paragliding?
Yeah, there are several problems. The first thing, what we never should forget, paragliding is so extremely safe because your glider cannot break. If you put in strong turbulences, they will collapse because he is more clever than the pilot in this moment. And he opens again when the turbulences are gone. Mm-hmm. This is one of the, most important thing that the paraglider can collapse. If you fly a paraglider what can't collapse, it's extremely dangerous. Because in the case of strong turbulences, this energy have to do something. And mainly, if you remember when we flight 30 years ago with wings with valves in the front, where the air cannot go out, like Sapphire, Mast, Gen-Air, 3-layer, and all these wings, what I also flew. If you get a strong turbulence with a collapse, you, in most of the cases, you have a canopy contact with the body. They flew the collapse and they flew you to you. And if you are
trapping.
Tumbling.
Yeah.
And the tumble over you, if you was lucky and you have not so much luck, you fall in the lights or in the canopy. And then the first 20 years, a lot of people have canopy contact in turbulences because we flew wings with valves. Then we find out that it's better that the canopy deflates in case of turbulences and reopens very fast. That's why our wing, what it cannot collapse, is for paragliding extremely dangerous. The second problem with tube kites is, with tube in a paraglider, when you change altitude, let's say you start of 1,000 meters, you pump it with a 1.2 bar, the pressure. If you go to 5,500 meters, you have a bump. It will explode.
Oh, right.
So what happens if the difference, if you go on 3,000 meters for takeoff, you make 1.2 bar and you fly down to sea level, you have a floppy tube. So in this case, you would need a system, an electronic-based system with a pump, what is always keeping the pressure inside stable. This is not possible at the moment. Or it's possible, but makes no sense.
I mean, AI is coming in with a huge, advancements in cars and other modes of transport. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but we have to keep the possibility that you can deflate a glider.
Right. So let's say when we add on these things called tubes, rigid tubes, like the metal rods, which help retain nitinol rods or whatever plastic rods. These, do they have to be of certain stiffness, or is it just to make the glider a bit more structured? Or how is this material chosen, and what is the R&D that goes behind it? Because it is about making it tight, to put it in simple words, but not tight enough that it becomes a danger. So how does that look from a designer's perspective?
Yeah, about the rods, it's the same game always with the attachment points. Let's say, for example, on the LILO X, I don't have nitinol only. I have the nitinol rods only in the front and no sticks and no rods on the backside. Even upper and lower pedals, they don't have any rigid material inside. But the problem is, I nearly have to try out by flying experimental the right position of each attachment point. Because if you shift it only 2-3 centimeter, it can be enough to change the behavior of the wing and also to deform the airfoil shape on these attachment points too much. So in the moment when someone don't want to invest a lot of time and money to find out the correct position of each attachment point, the easiest way is to put rods everywhere. It's simple because you get a load distribution, and then if you are 5 centimeters far behind or too much in front, doesn't matter. So it's easier. The second point is if you have a problem to support the distance between the first double A line group and the B lines, what we spoken before, if you put rods in this distance, it's more stable. So you can.
Okay, this is a little bit hard to visualize just by talking, but I think I do get the whole, crux of the matter that you're trying to bring across. But let's go back to the concept of two-liners, Michael, because this is very interesting for me. I have recently transitioned to two-liners not that long ago. Loved them, got addicted to them, wanted them as the only wing that I have. But then downgrading to a 2.5 liner, because I was flying Arctic before, and then I switched to Frango from UP. I don't know, Michael. There was something mesmerizing about the 2.5 concept. The sense of security it gave me mentally. Now, I know this could have been marketing. I know this could have been just, the things that I see. But why does 3-liner feel more safer than a 2-liner? Or is it just a mental thing?
No, it's not a mental thing. I keep a lot of trainings, as you know, in my country here. I come from safety training last week, and I must say the most dangerous viewing are the 2.5 liner.
One more time.
From my experience, all the people what is coming to our classes with 2.5 liner have the biggest problems in maneuvers and stability and so on. Because
I'm forgetting the word. I did not hear you. Did you say people who are coming in with 2-liners?
No, with 2.5 liners.
2.5. Okay, yeah. So the one stuck in the middle.
With them, we had the most biggest problems.
Okay.
For my opinion, a 2.5 liner is not 2-liner. It is not 3-liner. It's a marketing gag. What they try to reduce to remove one main line on the outside, but in change you get a lot of problems what you don't need. So if you have the 2-line concept is different because there we have to shift the A behind us we talked before, but on the 2.5 liner that doesn't shift the A far behind. They only take away the B lines. That's all.
And that to the outside one, because I think in the center of the canopy it's anyways 3s.
Exactly. And if you take the 2.5 liner on the section where there are 2.5 liner, means in the outline they have only 2 attachment points on the profiles, A and B. Not double A and double B. And this is, in some cases, is very unstable. If it's a big risk to get the covered. And also it's difficult to make nice big ears and other things. But don't forget, it is not the line concept alone what is defining the behavior of a glider. It's the completely canopy and all the stuff inside and outside.
I mean, of course, you're the expert here, so I will, agree with your point of view. But I tell you, I was able to use full speed bar, with much more confidence on a 2.5 than I could with 2, simply because the whole system vibrated a lot less. In a 2-liner, as soon as I go full bar, like the vibrations that I feel through B handles is a lot more scary, or a bit more makes me more anxious than the ones that I feel with 2.5 liner, where I'm like, yeah, just, go full bar, no worries.
This is, of course, can be. The problem is not the line system, the geometry, it's the canopy.
All right, right.
And that's what I say in the beginning. If the normal people, paragliders, are speaking about two-liners, they always have the concept is coming from the competition wing.
True.
Of course.
Very true.
And the C wing now, it's two-liners. But we have to check also the canopy. What is inside in the canopy? How is made inside? What kind of airfoil we are using? And you can only make to compare it if you use the same canopy with 3-liner, 2.5 liner, and 2-liner. Mm-hmm. And on this step, of course, I tried also 2.5 liner on the LILO. For me, was the worst solution. Because if you make stall and bad exits, you always have cravats. And the 2-liner, it's the best solution at the moment for me, but not without the maneuver lines. Because if you don't have these maneuver lines, I call it, what is not on the load in the flag, but you need it for maneuvers. Without this, the concept is missing the possibility to take off and to make collapses. But the funny thing is, just to give you an idea how big is the difference, the normal LILO and homologation have, I guess, the large size 5 or 6B. The rest is A. Okay. The LILO X and the homologation have only 2B. One is the ears, but is not open alone. And the one is at a lower weight than takeoff because you have to break it a bit. But collapses, front start, all maneuvers are all like a school wing. It's A&E. And this shows that it's working very well.
Oh, this is interesting because 2-liners were just meant for racing and now 2-liners are meant to have fun as well. And, it's a new thing. But what I'm wondering is, okay, let's talk a little bit about homologation because before I go into the lower categories of E and A and, just like school wings, how does DHV or E, and I think they're pretty much on par, with respect to requirements. So what's the concept between having collapsed lines and then making it 2-liner category? Or why can't we have 2-liner without collapsed lines? Or just tell us a little bit about the homologation process. How does it work?
We have to define, there are several systems for homologation. No? If you are using folding lines, means you can put these folding lines close to the vents.
As close to the?
To the vents, to the leading edge.
Correct.
So if you go, and these folding lines are a very nice trick to pass gliders, but they normally have problems and collapses. Because what happens? If you pull down the folding lines, you make a big step where you pull down and the rest of the wing. It means you fold it like this is the profile, okay? Then you make like this. You just pull down the nose. What happens? The wing makes not a depression area on bottom because the wind is coming from up, but they're just is collapsing and squeezing and is rolling inside the wing, and the dynamic of a collapse is very low. So with folding line, it's a very nice trick to pass with wings, but normally it would never pass the homologation. That's the bad side of the folding line. In the moment, for example, if you get a ANC wing with 2 lines and you put the folding lines on 10% of the airfoil deepness, means the original position of the 3-liner, okay? And you make the maneuver with this, you never would pass ANC. That's
interesting.
The problem. What we have with the folding lines. The folding lines doesn't make real collapses. The folding lines help you to make the show for the homologation, but it's not what happens in real activity.
That's such a dilemma, I think, with homologation and collapses in general, because no matter what, real turbulence is a whole different world altogether with respect to calm over the lake. Letters that we get on the.
Of course. So if I use the maneuver lines, but they are the same position like on the normal LILO, means 10% for the nose. And if you make the collapses with this, it's exactly the same behavior as when you use the 3-liner. And that's why it was quite easy to convince the pilots of DHV to fly it, because I say, look, it's the same position like the old LILO. I just move it, the AA more behind. I let you the old lines from the old LILO on the same position, and you can do every maneuver you want. They make a few flags and they find it very good. And they like it. So it was fine.
Just out of curiosity, how was it dealing with DHV in this regard? Like, what did the communication look like?
Now, you have to know, I worked with DHV since nearly 35 years. We are also good friends. And I like the DHV pilot because we have a good connection. They say me, for example, sometimes when I made wings for other companies, listen, you can pass with this wing, what I would do it. And I say, why? Yeah, maybe this and this is not so good for the normal pilots, but it's your decision. So I like this because I decide then to make it again with a better wing. Because I don't need to pass homologation and have the problems after. I need just a real clear meaning of the pilots. And when they say, yeah, you can pass, but it's not good, I would say, okay, we make some changes and come back again. And so it's very easy to work with them, and I like it very much.
Oh, I'm glad, because usually whenever there's a new technology, the industry is very skeptical, especially the ones who are certifying it, because it's on them, to accept and bring it into the whole foray and show it to the people. So I'm glad they were supportive enough, and I'm glad you were able to make it happen.
Let's say one of the biggest points to discuss was, mathematically for the load test, you have to include all lines.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
And there is a minimum load what you have to reach with your lines. And I say, for my opinion, I don't have to insert the maneuver lines to these calculations. I want bigger A lines and bigger B lines to get the minimum load what is requested. And they say, maybe you are right, because the maneuver lines are not under load. They are very, very thin. So we don't need it to add it to the calculation. What means that all the rest have to be stronger. But in theory, if somebody wants to cheat, they say, yeah, we use the maneuver lines also for the load calculation. And then this is wrong, because in the real air use, it doesn't help.
Okay. Well, anyways, let's go back to the consumer perspective for a bit. You are a new pilot on the market who is out there looking for their first wing. A lot of pilots are very tempted in today's world to go in for a high B instead of a low A or a low B. This has become the norm of the industry, and I will talk about it because this is a reality in a lot of people's lives. What happens if you go on LILO X straight after school?
This is a really good question. What happens and what the people means what happens are two different things, of course. Frankly said, the difference for the request to the pilot, for the skills to the pilot between LILO 2 and LILO X, it's clear that the LILO X is much easier to fly and much safer. Of course, when you go to the LILO X, you have to learn how to use the maneuver lines. If you try to take off with the A lines, you can forget it. You can pull like hell, but nothing will happen. So you just use the maneuver lines, and then the takeoff is very easy. It's even easier with our school wing, because they don't overshoot you.
Right.
It's coming up very slowly, very linear. That's the good thing. The problem is that the people with all these discussions and high performance gliders in the two-line system thinks that two lines are dangerous or difficult. So we have to speak with the pilots what are interested to fly the LILO X a lot about that. It's not the two-line system what is defining the wing, but the whole concept. And all the people what had the possibility still today to fly the LILO X, it's like 2 weeks ago also on the Lake of Garda, they say it's easier than the normal LILO and safer.
Wow.
But on the other side, when you have small landing places, of course, with more performance, you have to deal with it. So this can be a point what can be a little bit difficult from people what coming from the A&A glider to try to land on small landing areas.
How does the stall point look like comparatively?
How you mean?
The stall point, like do the brakes reach their stall point earlier compared to the three-liner concept, or is it more or less the same, the pressure and everything?
No, later. You have longer brake range. You can pull it down deeper, and the stall is even softer.
How is that possible?
Because the nose automatic, the pitching what we spoke before helps a lot in this case.
Surprising, because I went from three-liner Ikuma to two-liner Arctic R, and Arctic R stalled much quicker than a Ikuma.
Yeah, but as I told you, it's not the two-line system, it's the canopy.
Oh, jeez. Wow. This is so interesting.
Well, I guess I must say, LILO, it's made basically for friends and people which we know, and we don't try to sell it in big numbers. It's just a nice small project to have friends and good gliders for us, and that's why we don't have A&A or ANC gliders. We just have the LILO, and that's enough. But my original thinking after flying 2 years with the two-liner LILO was the best solution for the people to learn would be a two-liner A&A glider, because you have a lot of advantages. If you have a pilot, what is not very clever, let's say, it begins to pull around the risers in air with the A&A two-liner. If they pull the maneuver lines, doesn't doesn't make big damage. You collapse a little bit the front, but that's all. If you don't pull very, very hard. If you pull with the full weight on the main A lines, the glider accelerates but doesn't collapse.
Fantastic.
So it's quite impossible for a school wing, if it's made like a two-liner like the LILO X, to make maneuvers what can be dangerous. And in change, you have a very long brake range too.
This is magical. Okay, let's take. Please go on one more time.
We don't have the market to sell A&A lines, A&A gliders, and I don't want to deal with schools or other companies.
No, but I was thinking about from a consumer's perspective. Let's say you are somebody who loves getting in the air, don't want to, like, you're a weekend warrior, you know. You fly 20, 30 hours a year maximum. Is a two-liner E&A, because paragliding is all about managing risk versus reward, which is managing fun while still trying to be safe, right? So is a two-liner E&A concept supposedly the most fun wing a weekend warrior can invest in, if it comes to that?
Okay, we are speaking about a dream of mine. I would say a paraglider, what is flying 30 hours in the air, don't need a B-wing.
Yeah.
If they are flying just for fun, they need an A-wing, but an A-wing, what you can accelerate well. This is one of the main problems of the A-wing at the moment. Their concept is three-liner and on top four-liner. When you accelerate them, you lose performance incredibly much.
Yeah, they just
going down.
I think they become like skydiving canopies, like the glide ratio just goes away, you know, like 5 is to 1 or something.
With the two-liner concept, you don't have this problem. It means I can design an A-wing, what is very, very safe, very easy to fly, and you can accelerate it very fast without losing a lot of glide ratio. This is one of my thinking, the possibility to accelerate with a good performance. It's also a part of security, of safety. Because if you need to accelerate, I want that I go forward, but not down like a skydiving canopy.
Yeah.
So I would say it would be a good idea to make it.
Right. That's what I was thinking, because Delta, the latest offering from Ozone, has made it clear that they are not interested in three-liner ENCs anymore. No, and probably if a brand is not interested, that means the market is not investing money in three-liners ENCs anyways. So the pilots want two-liners. The industry is offering two-liners. I think three-liners are very soon going to be a thing of history, especially if they get started introducing in E&A class. And then we are going to have to redefine the safety trainings, which was long overdue. Like, you know, why hasn't the safety trainings been updated? But three-liner safety training versus two-liner safety training is a whole different ball game. And from what I see is, I think within next 5 years, probably by 2030 or something, we are looking at three-liners being completely obsolete. What do you think about that?
Yeah, always the same game. Depends on the canopy. For example, with the LILO X, safety training is totally simple because you do the same things like before with the maneuver lines. You can do everything. It's a little bit easier to do it because you have less power on the lines. And of course, if you get a ANC wing without folding lines and go to safety training, it's extremely difficult because to make a collapse without the folding lines, it's, let's say, or you make it and you fall down, or you don't make it well and you have nothing. And that's the main problem. You cannot simulate frontal collapse and the side collapse without folding lines or maneuver lines.
Yeah.
And this is difficult.
I mean, it's just about simulating, right? But let's say real world flying condition. I think it's Little Cloud, the brand which doesn't certify except the load testing. All these parakites are just load tested. So I see a lot of manufacturers going away from the usual EN or DHP testing simply because of the fact that the real world collapses are very different. So let's forget the requirements for a moment and let's just focus on the actual fun and safety that these wings give us. In that regard, I think E&B two-liner is a catch and an E&A two-liner is a steal deal. Don't you think so?
I think this is just my personal opinion. There are a lot of companies, they see the homologation, the tests, just as a point for marketing. And they're using it for this. It means if they pass or not, they use some tricks to pass it. And if they passed, it's everything fine, and they can sell it also in Germany. For my opinion, you can use the homologation service from DHB at AN also as the last final check if your wing is ready for the market or not. And you get 2 opinions for each glider, minimum and maximum, for 2 different pilots, but they're very experienced pilots, and they know nearly every wing on the market. They flew it before because they made the homologations before. So they can give you a lot of information if you want, and if you can discuss with them, and it helps you to be safe that your product will work on the market. On the other side, you can go there and say, I make the homologation in some way. We doesn't discuss. If they say it's a bad wing, but you can pass even, why not? Or we can let away the test flights, also possible. But then you have not only missing the expert information, but you are missing in some countries also the legal side. Because
the insurance thing, I understand.
No, it's not the insurance thing. For example, in Italy, by law, you as pilot are responsible that you are flying in the right condition, the right wing. This is a bad thing, because if you are coming from ANA after you getting the license to buy your ANC 2-liner, and it's written on that this is for experts only, and you have to make done safety training and so on, and you don't have it, you fall down, you will get in trouble a lot in Italy because you try to kill yourself.
That's subjective, no?
For the court, it's not subjective. I made a few, documentation for the court in Italy, for the tribunal, where they asked me, what do you think about this pilot was flying this glider? I have to say, we have to follow the classes. You cannot fly after getting the license 1 more months later ANC wing. It's not made for you because they are missing the experience, they are missing the safety trainings, they are missing the skills for this kind of wings. So what happens if you don't have homologation? It happens that you have to describe as producer exactly how is the behavior of this wing, who can fly it. Okay. So when you sell this wing to some pilot, you have to ask him, do you have the skills for flying this wing? And if he say yes or not, he have to prove it. But if you don't ask him, you sell them a wing and he kill you by themselves without homologation, they can come to you and say, why did you sell the wing to this pilot? And then you have a big trouble.
And how does the speed wing market work? Or parakites, for that example?
Yeah, this is ACO and speed wing are exactly the problem because let's say you sell gliders without any improvement that they are flying like they promise it. So speed wing is in most of the countries are a black thing. Nobody cares about. They say you can fly, but it's your problem. What if you kill yourself? It's your problem, and it's not regulated because they suppose that somebody what is flying a speed wing or aqua glider, they know what they do, and then most of the time it is like this. They know what they are doing. I hope.
You
cannot expect from a family father that after the license, he get the license to know which wing is the best for him. They need some indication what kind of wing should be flied. It's not an easy discussion.
No, and it's an endless one. And I'm so glad I'm speaking to you because you are, I was just looking at your website. It says you're an author, you're one of the most sought after trainers and a speaker. And of course, you have this sensational new invention in our sport. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about you? And I know I should have asked this question to you in the beginning of the podcast, but still, while we are here at this topic, who are you and how did you become so awesome in life?
You mean my personal story?
Like paragliding, because I'm very inspired by the way you said you have described the coaching section on your website, which says you lead you use a bit of hypnosis and NLP and communication and all of that. So it's like loads of things that I want to dive deep into, but very limited time that we have. So a little bit of introduction, and then we'll go into the philosophical side of your existence.
All right. Yeah. Where I begin? Originally, I was a programmer for computer systems, means operating systems and all this stuff. And about 30 years ago, I see in the television flying somebody with parachutes from the mountain in France. in MUC. And I said, this is the solution because I like to climb up the mountain, but I don't like to climb it down. And I need one of these things. And I was calling by phone Jean-Marc Beaumont, very famous paraglider at this time. And he was producing the first skydiving wing modified for jumping down. And he sold me this glider, sent it here, and we begins together with my wife at this time to try to take off what was quite difficult and so on. But we fly. And the next step was that I go to buy a better wing 1 year later in Germany by Bigla UP. And when I was there, I checked how they made the gliders. They were using the wooden panels to get a three-dimensional real size model to are able to get the panels on top and bottom. And I say to them, hey, I can make you a program what make it by calculation, and so you don't need this three-dimensional one-to-one scale objects.
That's fancy, man.
So I began to write the first program to make the paraglider design, and I would say the first 20 years, nearly 90% of the producer was using this software. Okay. And it was quite complex to use it. So glider plane for everything today is much more easy. Everybody can use it. But yeah, this was, of course, parallel. I'd like to teach paragliding. So I am instructor since 87, 88 in Italy, and since the 90s in Austria and Germany. And so step by step, we tried with my company to improve it. And we learned NLP technique. I learned hypnosis. Also, my wife, what is the boss of the company. She is
boss of the house and the company. I think I'll correct you there.
Yeah, that's it. And my target is always to be a pilot and not to be a salesman.
So cool to hear that. I think because I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, and I was like, there are two ways to do a business. One is to make a lot of profit and keep on running behind the numbers. And the other one is to try and bring some value to your life in general while chasing the business, which is definitely less profitable. And more stressful because there's less money and you have a business to run. But somehow the second part is the most enriching and most exciting part if you're able to do it, right?
Yeah, I must say when I meet the pilots what are flying canopies, what I designed, and they are happy and they say, hey, I like this flight with this, and I see the happy faces. This is much more important than every money.
Wow, must be such a cool feeling. Yeah, from designing softwares to giving the industry the thing that they work on for 20 years and then bringing out all of these awesomeness. Yeah, man. Inspiring. Thank you for being on the show.
Good.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about hypnosis and NLP. Hypnosis, nothing big, but NLP, I've never heard about it. So what are these and how do you use them to teach?
Yeah. Did you know a little bit about or not? Nothing?
Nothing. And I'm pretty sure there are multiple audience members who are listening to us also in the same position.
I explain it very fast. NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, it's a collection of different techniques for mental, teaching. And the difference from NLP and psychoanalysis or psychologists is that NLP works only if you want to change something. So if a pilot comes to me and I say, I'm scared about the altitude, the first question is, do you really want to change this or not? And then if he say yes, and if he is convinced, we can work with NLP. And this kind of techniques is based on the thing that everybody have different channels where he can learn fast or slow. Somebody is learning very fast when he look what he is doing. Other one, you have to explain it. It's auditive. It means you have to explain it step by step that he can hear it. Other one is kinesthetic. It means you have to move together with him the hands. For example, to learn the takeoff. And with all these techniques, let's say if you coach a pilot, it's completely individual. The first step is to find out what is the channel where I can teach him very fast and direct. Then the next step is what he can bring from his normal life to this situation. For example, I have
like relatability, basically relating to something.
A classical example is you come there, you want to take off French style. It means face to glider. to inflate it. And then he made some experience that was not so good. And he said to me, yeah, I would like to take off like this, but I cannot do it. I don't have the feeling for it. And then we begins to check if he have other situations where he have a very good feeling, for example, in ground handling, for example, in his work, whatever. And I say, try to bring this feeling inside you to this situation.
You mean visualizing? Is that what you
visualizing also, but visualizing is only the movement. I want also the emotions.
Oh, right. Okay.
And in the moment when you bring good, positive emotions into the situations, everything is working better.
Wow.
And one of the classical where we are in English is good, in German, Italian language is difficult because it's meaning the same things. We work a lot with feelings and emotions. Do you know, emotions are coming from something what was in the past. Feelings are now in the reality, this moment. For example, if you are flying, you get your glider is shaking and everything, you get a feeling. It can be fear, it can be something else. Then you have to check this fear. It's coming from a real situation or it's coming from an invention or something what you have seen in the past and a similar situation. And at the moment when you begin to bring you back in the here and now, this moment, you are able to walk correctly, to fly correctly. But if you are dealing with your emotion, for example, I have seen a YouTube video where on the same flight, on the same area, somebody get a collapse with spiral covered and need a rescue. And my glider is shaking a little bit, but nothing happens. And I remember this, what I have seen on the video, on the YouTube. I am out of the situation. I am not in the here and now. I am in the things what can be possible, but it doesn't at the moment. You understand? And so with all these tricks, it's not so easy, but these are working very, very well.
I can imagine. And this is like so deep and interesting that, this definitely needs a whole different episode to be delved upon. Because I think a lot of times, like we do have enough, or not enough by any means, but we do have a lot of focus on how to teach people paragliding or how to make instructors. And there's a lot of material around it, but we do not have a lot of material on how to teach instructors on how to teach people, Like the instructor training isn't that robust or that strong. So this is definitely a very interesting topic that needs to be dived deep into in future.
But at the moment, I must say that it's changing a lot. For example, we are teaching the new instructor for Austria. And since this year, they included also psychological and training for the instructors. And they are also speaking about or thinking about to make a psychology entry test for future instructors and tandem pilots.
Right.
That makes sense because if you have a crazy acro pilot who is scared by nothing and they want to make instructor, maybe it's not the right person. So they have to slow down But I think step by step the responsible check that the psychological part of paragliding is more important than the technical one, and they begin to insert it in the instructor process too.
That's great. And the hypnosis part, is that only pre-flight on ground? Like, is there a specific time, or can it be at any given point of time as long as there is two-way communication, which is like even if it's on radio on the flight?
No, we are using the hypnosis especially for let's say a clear situation. Let's say somebody have problems with the takeoff. So he can now to learn to visualize his perfect takeoff. It's possible. But also we can make hypnosis. How is the perfect takeoff for him? And this kind of hypnosis, we give him an MP3 file so he can hear it when he is not flying. Then he go to the takeoff and his subconscious will do the right things.
So you have an MP3 file where you are telling pilot that visualize you're getting into the harness, you're closing the buckles, you're attaching your risers, the wind is coming in.
But always in the perfect one.
Wow, man. Why is this technique not famous yet?
That's cool. There was also a very funny situation last year. I have a pilot would say, I like flying so much, I like thermal, everything, but after 25, 30 minutes, I'm going sick. And a lot of people try to give him idea. Do this, and nothing helps. And then we say, easy, okay, now do you take off? It's a very good day. You can fly hours and hours. Thermal is very strong, but you have only 5 minutes to going sick. Try to go sick as fast as you can. Do you know what?
One more time. You have only 5 minutes too?
I say to him before takeoff, you have 5 minutes to going sick. You have to accelerate the sickness. please try everything to go sick immediately. And do you know what? He flew 2.5 hours without going sick.
All right. And
This
why
is
was
a
that?
classical NLP situation. It looks funny and simple, but it works very well. But it works for this pilot. For the next pilots, maybe it doesn't work. You have to find it out.
You know what, Michael? Let's connect regarding this on a different episode, and I'll structure that one. Well, let's exchange some emails and some thoughts around this, because this needs to go out to a wider audience, and people, not just pilots, like instructors, need to get inspired by this and incorporate that in their teaching. Unless you're planning to copyright it, in that case, we can.
No. No.
Are you planning to copyright the LILO X invention as well?
Copyright?
Trademark.
No, I guess
No,
they will
trademark.
come very fast. But it's good for one of the things what maybe I made a mistake in the past. The RAST system what I made for Swing.
Mm-hmm.
There is with the patent, and it's very closed for other companies. And for my opinion, it was a big mistake, because the safety what you can gain with this, it's so important that should be open to every company. But
Thank you for saying that, Michael. You're such a good person, man.
No, but it's a good thing for everybody if we're flying safer all together. And I think business is the second step. Safety and happy pilots must be always the first step.
I'm sorry. Are you the designer for Swing? Like, are you the one
I
who
was
made
the
it?
designer for Swing. I invented the RAST. I'm an inventor, the registered inventor, but the rights are on Swing. So I cannot do anything to give it free. But for my opinion, we had to give it free for everybody from the beginning.
Blows my mind. It's almost like Shark Nose. Shark Nose was a big step when it came out in increasing safety, and it was very kind of Ozone to provide that technology and leave it open source. And that's what I was thinking as well. But of course, money matters as well up to a point. But is the wave leading edge? Do you see that as a big invention, or is that just a normal thing? Kind of a.
Well, I must say, I don't see a big invention, but if it works on competition wings, why not?
Okay.
Everybody should try every possibility what we can get.
But like RAST works on every level wings, and that improves it substantially. So it's a whole different league in its own.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So do you know?
Can't you?
Yeah. Okay.
Can't you invent something similar looking and navigate the patent around it?
Do you know how much I am thinking about? Because I want to find a way to make it free for everybody with the same behavior, with the same effect. But the legal what made the description for the patent was so clever that there is no way to go around. I'm sorry about.
Yeah. But is it expensive? Like for any other brand to incorporate it, do they have to lose like shitloads of money, which is not making sense, or why is the industry staying away from it if it's so good?
Let's say if you want to buy the license from Swing to use the RAST in your wings, there are many problems. First, you have to give money to a concurrent, to a competition company.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to do this. Second is the next problem, the personal image of a designer would have to buy a solution from another one. Of course, they don't like it. And the third is the moment when you begin to put the RAST on one wing in your product line, you have to do it on all wings. And at the moment, the market situation is so bad for the producers that they don't have the money to do this. To re-homologate 5, 6, 7 different models with RAST, it's too expensive and not possible.
Wow, that's interesting. But I think the patent way, or securing all of this is the way forward, because I recently had a SkyMate designer, the AI harness, AI harness sounds so fancy, but he spoke about patenting things as well and securing it. So I think we are just moving towards a more censored world in general, and not just in paragliding. And the free market is kind of soon becoming a thing of the past, which is kind of sad, man. I hope I'm wrong.
You're right. Yeah. We should never forget that paragliding is a hobby. It's just for fun. So to bring in hard business makes no sense.
Yeah, and the market is, but yeah, I mean, people who are doing it will have their own opinion. So this is a never-ending discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
But on that note, Mike, what's next? ENA two-liner or just EN? Like, yeah, what? You are a super interesting person, and I can ask this question in 20 different dimensions to you. But when it comes to flying, how are you planning to increase the fun factor in the air?
Oh, personally, I am on the point where I think about to leave the paragliding construction. I would say LILO X is one of the last steps what I will do in this direction.
Don't say that, Michael.
Why not? Because I would like to go into fly more, to teach more. And I guess the LILO X will work for the next 3-4 years quite well. Maybe we make some small improvement, but I don't know what at the moment. And that's it. And after that, I try to do different things, I guess.
Love it. Love it. As long as there's hope and plans, I think you're
Yeah,
right.
one of the dreams for me and my wife would be to make a flying center in south or center of Italy where you can fly very well and where the people can live for 1, 2, 3 months as they want to learn and flying a lot, or also for the whole time. But it's a far project. Maybe in a few years we can realize it.
I believe in it, and you can make it happen, Michael. And I think a lot of paragliders do share this dream, because spreading the joy, sharing the dreams with other pilots is so fulfilling, man. I kid you not. That's adds so much value, and reminds me of a good friend from Bulgaria, Nikolai Yotov. You must have heard about him. He's your age. No? Okay, yeah. Well, he's not a big comp pilot, but still a similar guy, super amazing flyer. And he has this home which is called his nest for real, because it's like a nest holding the pilots. And he's kind of living the dream in the Balkan Mountains in Sopot, where he just lives below the ski lift and has his little setup, teaches the people. Amazingly beautiful house that he took over like 10 years to construct, a little bit by himself and a little bit by others' help. And yeah, so I think a lot of us are sharing common passions and common dreams, and
the paragliding communities. Great.
The fun ones. All right. Then, Mike, one last question I forgot to ask you about LeelooX. How many hours who can fly LILO X? Like, who is it targeted for? I forgot before we wrap up.
I would say everybody what is thinking about flying a mid-B, low-B can fly the LILO X, except the problem of with small landing areas.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot of fun. Extra glide ratio, extra speed. I mean, imagine the bragging rights you get when you're flying on an E&B and smoking the competition. Who is at your level? It's cool.
Yeah, cool.
All right, Michael. Anything else that we need to touch upon before I wrap up for now?
Oh, for now, maybe not.
All right, great. Then I think we'll save everything else with NLP and hypnosis, because I will get in touch with you for that via emails. We will kind of structure that, and please promise me you'll be back on the show for that one to share your awesomeness with our audiences.
Cool. Very nice.
That's the only way I'll let you go, if you make that promise.
Okay. So I go to fly now.
All right, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute honor, and what a great invention, man. I hope you keep on bringing the awesomeness to the audiences like you do. And until next time, it's been really nice. Thank you.
And I would like to go to fly together with you sometime.
I think we have a plan in the making. Test flying LILO X and sharing the joy in the air. Let's do it.
Yeah, not only this, you are always welcome in the Dolomites. I live here near the landing place. I have the cable car in front of the house. So if you want to come, just do it.
I think we'll put out a public service announcement to anybody who's listening to this show. We will put your website, which is profly.org, if I'm not wrong. And to all our audiences who are listening to Michael, he has a website which is specifically catering to his, production of the gliders and everything. And then I don't know how to speak this word, because there's another website which is called Uberflyer. Do you correct that?
Yeah, it's the online academy where we try to give away all the informations and techniques, where we have not the time to make so many real classes, and so we collect then and give it to the people who don't have the time to come to us.
Yeah, so whether or not you and which place in Dolomites are you based out? Which city are we talking about?
There is no city, it's Tears. It's close to the Passo Carezza. It's not the Fassa side, not the Italian side. It's the South Tyrol side. That's why we can fly the whole year. We don't have storm wind like you have in Fassa. And if you have a good day, you take off here, you make the mountain behind us here, pass to Fassa over the valley, go to the Marmolada and fly back and land at the cable car here again. It's easy.
You're living the dream, aren't you? All right. So anyways, to all our people who are listening, the show notes will be, the links will be in the show notes below. And believe me, these websites are a gem of a production to dive into. You will basically have all the information that Michael does with training and the new technologies that he's coming out with. So make sure you check that out. And next episode is all going to be about how to transfer knowledge in the most efficient manner and make sure the pilot who you're teaching becomes one of the safest and the most responsible ones in the air.
Hey, cool. Super. I like this.